Shana Tova. One of my favorite shows on Broadway last year was Alex Edelman's Just for Us, his one-man comedy about meeting white nationalists in Queens. I suspect many of you saw it as well, if not on Broadway, then on HBO. I think I laughed for the entire 90 minutes without pause, and who doesn't love to laugh? What I didn't know at the time was that behind all of our laughter, there was a layer of profound loss and sadness. In a powerful New York Times editorial over the summer, Edelman shared the story of how his best friend and show collaborator for 5 years, Adam Brace, died, in his words, suddenly and very inconsiderately, at the age of 43, just days before the show was to open on Broadway. Imagine, he says, you make something with someone you love. It's a thing that's tangible, but needs participation, like a watch that requires winding. Now imagine that person goes away and you still have to tend the garden you planted with him, or sing the song you wrote together, or walk through a house that is now fully characterized by emptiness. We had built a house together, and now I was going to have to live in it by myself. And the question that I had was how? How indeed? This has been a year of sadness and grief for so many of us. Many of us lost loved ones this past year, gaping holes left in our lives. We have collectively suffered a heartload of grief over the events in Israel, from the horrors of the atrocities of October 7th, to the lost lives of the IDF, to the devastating recent murders of 6 of the hostages, including Hirsch Goldberg Poland. And then there are our other sorts of grief, the end of relationships, illnesses which brought with them the diminution of abilities, lost pregnancies, pets deceased, monetary losses, memory loss, and lost jobs. Each of us at any time is going through something. How do we navigate through all the grief and pain? Writer and director Colin Campbell offers some advice through the prism of his own loss and grief. In 2019, he was traveling on a family trip with his wife and 2 teenage children from his home in Los Angeles to their vacation home in Joshua Tree, when a drunk driver crashed into his car, killing his 2 beautiful, charming, witty, talented, brilliant, and loving children. I always believed my life would keep getting better and better, he wrote in his memoir entitled Finding the Words. It certainly felt that way as I moved through my 30s and 40s. I discovered my calling as a father and as a teacher, and each year I felt more confident with who I was and my place in the world. I didn't believe in God or fate or karma, but I did have an unshakable belief that whatever challenges I might face, it will all work out in the end, and that everything happens for a reason. And then, on June 12, 2019, at 10:45 p.m., all of those sweet, naive beliefs were shattered. In an instant, my life would not ever all work out in the end, and Ruby and Hart's deaths certainly did not happen for a reason. Campbell and his wife survived the crash, but their lives were destroyed. Over time, he learned how to navigate the pain and combat his despair, and part of what helped him move forward were Jewish mourning rituals. And he shares insights from his year of saying Mourner's Kaddish that I want to share with you today as a framework for the journey from pain to healing. I share this framework and his wisdom, not just for those who might be reciting Kaddish in the wake of the death of a loved one, but rather, I believe its lessons are universal. They are for all of us who travel the road from loss toward healing, whatever disappointment, sadness, or grief we may be working through. It's a roadmap I call the lesson of the 3 C's. C number 1, cry. One of the experiences of saying Kaddish regularly is that it requires you to face the pain over and over again, day after day, as you recite it. In other words, it invites you to be fully and regularly present in your mourning. Whatever your loss, whether you are reciting Kaddish or not, give yourself space to grieve. Cry. Allow yourself to be devastated. Allow your heart to break into 1,000,000, billion, trillion little pieces, and then cry some more. Healing takes time, a lot of time, which is something the Jewish tradition understands well, and why it recognizes the need for a timeline. First Shiva, the first 7 days of intense grieving, then Shloshim, the 30-day period of mourning, which is still acute, but a little less raw. Then a year until the recitation of Kaddish ends, and then the yartzites and the yizkers year after year after year after year. Even so, grief is not a straight line, and it can be a very bumpy road. Catherine Schultz describes her grieving process after the death of her father in her book Lost and Found, in which she distinguishes between mourning and grief. Mourning, she says, is a public and structured process. We sit Shiva for a week, recite Kaddish for at least a month. Grief, by contrast, she says, is a private experience unconstrained by ritual or time. Popular wisdom will tell you that it comes in stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And that may be true, but the Paleozoic era also came in stages, and it lasted 290 million years. So be kind to yourself when you find yourself still dissolving into tears at the most unexpected times and in the most unexpected places, even if it feels like you should have already arrived after whatever era is the one after the Paleozoic. C number 2, community. There's a reason that we need 10 people to say Kaddish, because Jewish wisdom understands that we need to be held by others in our time of pain. Sharon Brous, in her book, The Amen Effect, talks about the power of community in the Mourner's Kaddish. The Mourner's Kaddish, she says, is a hallmark of Jewish mourning practice. These very words have been recited by broken-hearted people for thousands of years. It doesn't matter if the mourner believes in God. What matters is that a broken-hearted person stands up in prayer and reveals his grief out loud and in public, and the community responds with love and presence. This prayer, she says, I realized stood the test of time because it calls the mourner and community into a sacred conversation. It creates heart space in the void of a loss through the gentle insistence that life cannot be lived, nor can grief be honored in isolation. The one who suffers is invited repeatedly into the recognition, I am broken, but I am not alone. Amen, amen, amen. That single word, amen, conveys a world of meaning. It's a verbal affirmation, a kind of sacred witness. Yes, we're saying, I am with you. So allow yourself to be taken care of and supported. Reach out to friends and family in your community. Don't worry about being a burden. People want to be there for you. C number 3, choose life. The words of Kaddish are not actually about pain or loss. Rather, they invite us to extol God even in the face of our pain. The words of Kaddish are an affirmation that tragedy has not separated us from God, nor from our desire for life, for blessing, or for peace. Which is also the message of the Torah portion that immediately precedes the high holidays. In Parshat Nitzavim, God says, see, I set before you this day life and prosperity, death and adversity. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day. I have put before you life and death. Choose life. Choosing life means that despite our challenges, pain, loss, and sorrow, every day presents an opportunity to put one foot in front of the next and to try to remember, to look for, and maybe even celebrate the blessings in our lives as well. It's no coincidence that this message in this Torah portion comes at this time of year, a time of new beginnings. One of the most widely seen and enduring images in the days immediately following October 7th was the footage that Hamas released of the abduction of 25-year-old Noah Argamani, seen being taken away from the Nova Music Festival on the back of a motorcycle as she yelled, "Don't kill me," her arms outstretched towards her boyfriend, who was also kidnapped. On June 8th, thank God, Noah was rescued in a daring daylight operation from central Gaza by IDF forces after 9 months of captivity, along with 3 other hostages. And then, only 3 weeks after her rescue, her mother died of brain cancer. From hostage survivor to mourner, all in the space of a month. Despite all this trauma, on August 23rd, Noah celebrated her return to life at a party with friends and family she called Dance with Noah. "It's not ideal that we're having this party while there's still a war in the background," she told the crowd, "while our soldiers are still on the battlefield, while there are still 109 hostages there in Gaza, including my partner, Avinatan Or, who we miss terribly. But at the same time, I'm happy to celebrate life itself with all of you," she said to cheers from her friends, "to remember that we have to value every day in this life. We have to celebrate every moment we are here." While Noah's story is truly an inspiration, for many of us, celebrating life can be challenging amidst the sorrow and the pain. There's a midrash, a rabbinic story I find helpful when trying to navigate the bumpiness of that path. It's not one of the 3 C's, and it can't be found in the framework of Kaddish, but it speaks profoundly to the messiness and the complexity of healing. It relates to the giving of the 10 Commandments. When Moses went up to Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments from God, he was up there so long that the Israelites became impatient and feared he would not return. So they built and worshipped a golden calf. Moses was so enraged by their behavior that upon his descent, he threw the tablets to the ground in anger, shattering them. But then, in an act redolent of the work we are here to do today, Moses finds it in his heart to forgive the Israelites. And he ascends the mountain one more time, this time to beg God to forgive them as well. As a sign of God's forgiveness, God provides Moses with a second set of tablets, which the tradition teaches that Moses brought down to the Israelites on the 10th of Tishrei, which is today on Yom Kippur. Here's where the Midrash comes in, which I will share with you from the words of our very own Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove from his wonderful book For a Time Such as This. We know that a second set of tablets was constructed and placed in the Ark of the Covenant to accompany the Israelites on their journey forward. But what, the rabbis of the Talmud ask, happened to the shattered fragments of the first set? Were the shards left on the mountain? Perhaps, like the golden calf itself, they were destroyed, fragments of a painful memory better left in the past. Some things are better left behind. The rabbis suggest otherwise. Luchot v'shivrei luchot minuchim ba'aron. The Talmud says the tablets and the shattered tablets and the broken tablets, the whole tablets and the broken tablets, side by side, were put in the ark together. The image is powerful. Both the broken and the whole lead Israel on the journey forward. We pick up the pieces. We remember the hurt, hold on to the pain, and nevertheless put one foot in front of the other. Nothing is left behind. The forward momentum of our people actually depend on carrying both realities with us, shattered and whole on our way to the promised land. We learn to move forward not despite the pain, but with it. Today, on Yom Kippur, we celebrate receiving the whole tablets, which we carry side by side with the broken. What does that mean? Campbell found that time allowed our hearts to expand so that there was space for more than just the pain, he said. 3 years later, we have found a way not just to survive, but to actively choose life. Losing a loved one means that we endure a heartache that on some level will never end. We will always long for them, and the world will forever feel incomplete. And, remarkably, we slowly gain the ability to hold joy and happiness alongside our grief. For me, on the hard days, I try to remember to feel the sun on my face, to marvel at the beauty of the changing leaves on the trees, to smile at the sound of the kids laughing and playing in the park, to look for the small things to be grateful for. Those are the days that I try to remind myself I may still be hurting, but the beauty in the world makes the pain more tolerable, because life is messy and beautiful all at the same time. Like Edelman, we laugh and we mourn, and we try to remember to keep putting one foot in front of the other, step by step by step. Edelman learned from his father that we stop saying Kaddish after 11 months. In mourning in Judaism, you eventually let go and try to move on, he says. I decided to stop the tour at the very end of March, 11 months after Adam died. I'm doing better, he says, though I still can't believe that Adam is dead. I cannot believe that he is dead all the time. You think at least he'd take a break for a big awards show or a larger publicity event. What am I left with? More than enough. Crew members and producers who have become family. Laughs from more audience members than I'm likely to ever encounter again. The profound experience of writing, tinkering, performing, and grieving in every hemisphere. And one completed conversation about everything that is important to me. What our place in the world is, how to express it ferociously, and the exact right volume to utter a joke about a horse. It's been a year of so many tears, but we cannot and will not be immobilized from our grief. Together we will move forward, arms linked, hearts broken and full, because we are a people of hope, of fortitude, and of purpose. May this be the year, God willing, that we learn to dance again. Gemar Chatima Tova, may we all be sealed for a sweet year of peace and blessing.
Thank you for joining the Park Avenue Synagogue family. I hope you enjoyed the sermon. Please consider supporting our online community by scanning the QR code or by going to supportpas.org or by making a donation. Shalom and see you in Shul.